Mitch, I know we're looking for a working title, but we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater Developing.
Sounds like a photo shop.
Well, I was thinking, based on what we were talking about, it's like developing news,
Ah,
or process in, where we are in the process. Because of the conversations that we're having, it's always a piece of a greater conversation. And so it's always developing. The moments that we are talking about are still in progress.
well, when you think of any business, when you are in that business, when you have an understanding of how it works, you know how complex it is, which of course is
Hmm.
my argument always about colleges and that they
Yeah.
still pretend that we're doing it in a barn and all you need is a director and some actors and the musicians just
Yeah.
show up, right? They don't need to be paid and they just come to all the rehearsals and you have a full orchestra every
Yeah.
time. That doesn't work in theater. It doesn't work at a Hallmark card store.
Hey, you walking by with your upright bass. Get in here.
I do have one quick story. I did find
Hmm.
an actor the day before the first rehearsal just by being in a rehearsal studio in the hallway and somebody who looked exactly like what the part required walked by and I
Nice.
said, it's just like the old movies. Excuse me, are you an actor? And he went,
Oh,
I just came from an acting class. He couldn't even say yes. He just came from. I said, "Would you go talk to my director? We're looking for someone that looks like you at your age." And he went over there. We ended up working with him.
that's
So
great.
these things happen.
It is. Sometimes you just got to be in the right place.
And that's again why are we in New York or Philadelphia or it is about being an insider. That's one of the things I've noticed lately. To be able to walk up to a box office or a stage door is a great feeling. When you are treated, though, like an audience member from Iowa who just came in and doesn't know what they're doing, you feel left out. You do a reading or a showcase and the director, who does know what he or she is doing, if you start saying, "Do you know how to do this? Are we going to get a report?" And they get insulted, even though there are some who are better than others. There's no question. All right.
Yeah.
I just hijacked that conversation.
No, that's totally fine. Everyone, this is The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm Darnell
I'm Mitch
Radford,
Weiss.
and let's get down to business. So, there has been developing news.
Uh,
So, it started out, we received some news saying that Billy Porter, who is starring in the Broadway production of Cabaret as MC,
After having
was
starred in the West End in London in the same role,
mhm, was leaving the show prematurely. The show has 4 more weeks in its planned run, and it was announced that Billy Porter was leaving. And initially, um, it was because of an injury, or
we
he has a serious case of sepsis.
yeah, we perhaps giving too much detail of his personal life,
Yeah.
but yes.
Yeah, but it is in the article that's going out. So that's what we heard at first. And so everybody said, "Oh, what's going to happen?" But there was no like who's filling in or anything like that. And then shortly after that, like probably within a day or two, Cabaret Investors sues ATG amid early closing. And so on first glance, you're just saying, "Oh, this investor's going to sue because it's closing earlier than the investors were promised." And so, okay, that's interesting. But once you probe further, you find out that the team behind this production has not been running the business as efficiently as it should be run. There's an accusation of fraud. There's money that has been made, but it has not been distributed, and so on. So as we're finding out more about it, it's becoming a murky and crazy situation.
And this has happened once before at this level. The
Hmm.
claim that I read,
Fairly
yeah,
recently.
the claim
Yeah.
though, and this is just as reported, so we know nothing personally about this, but as reported, the show producers. ATG is both a theater owner and a producer. And ATG supposedly has taken in $88 million since the inception of Cabaret. The investor claims he has not been paid one penny. So even if expenses are high, and Lord knows they are, this Cabaret required them totally removing all the seats and stage in the Broadway theater and replacing them with a cabaret setting. You walk through a long hallway, there are tables and chairs, they have a center stage so it's in the round, they have elevators in it. They spent a lot of money. And as is required, did the same thing with Cats. They did the same thing with Andrew Lloyd Webber's roller derby musical, which I'm losing the name. Thank you,
Starlight
Starlight
Express?
Express, where they took out most of the theater and put in a roller skating. No,
Rink.
not a rink. That would be easy. What they did is actually put a runway that went around the audience.
Oh,
Yeah, and it had
wow.
elevators in it, which is why there was a very bad injury during previews because someone roller skated over part of the elevator that was coming up and caught his
Uh,
leg in it. It was very ugly. Anyway, moving right.
ah,
But as is required, the theater owners keep the amount of money that they think is required to return the theater to its original form. They put that in escrow so they know that they can return the theater. My guess is it is so expensive that that's why no money has been returned to investors. However, we just, with the production of Ragtime and Kiss of the Spider Woman, the producer, Garth Drabinsky, went to jail. Again, he spent so much money on those shows, and the investors said, we have hits. Why are we not getting our money back? And they
yeah.
had to take him to court. But meanwhile, in Canada, where he is from, Garth was thrown in jail for a different situation of quote unquote fraud that had to do with the AMC movie theaters. Again, you can Google this stuff. It's all in the newspapers. I have no connection to this. I am not an insider. I am just repeating what I read in the official papers. So Garth went to jail up there and never went to jail in the United States because we figured he got his just due there. But that allowed him to come back and try producing again with a show called Paradise Square, which had the same problem, although Paradise Square was not a financial hit. So that money was just lost. I don't know why people keep giving money to risky, more than so called risky producers.
Yeah.
So again, ATG, I don't know. It's interesting that they're being sued. I don't know if they will be able to prove
Interesting.
that all the money has a purpose and cannot be given out.
Interesting. Thinking about the producers,
Talking about the
perhaps they're
musical.
the
Yeah.
musical, yeah, perhaps they are thinking that, if this does well, we win. If it doesn't do well, then it's a write-off.
Well, to some extent, there's another problem. New York State used to have a tax credit for Broadway shows, part of which I think was funded by the federal government, and we know what this current administration thinks about that. Well, the amount of credit, which, by the way, this was a boom. What it allows people to do, producers to do, is to write off some of their expenses for the physical production, which means that the investors lose less money or get their money back faster. We ran out of that money last month. So the
Yeah.
people who have applied for it, and it requires you to hire an extra accountant because the paperwork is extremely tricky. Since they lost this money and this tax credit, we don't really know where these shows are at, what they're going to do, since they were promised that they would have this tax credit, but there's no money to pay for it. So everyone's waiting for New York State to get its act together and figure out if they're going to refund it, whether they're going to apologize. We don't know what they're going to do. So you add that to this. I imagine this is going to be a very expensive lawsuit, which is a shame because that's not what theater is supposed to be about.
Yeah. I was just saying in the office today that it's interesting that I'm pretty sure none of us set out to be building managers, to be chasing around grants and grant makers and here we are. And I was mainly talking about like when you raise a building, Like
Mhm.
you build a building from scratch, this is probably the first time you've ever done this because who goes to a job having done this 5 times already, you know? And so, however, but we're still asking for that caliber of knowledge and expertise in a role, knowing that that's not what anybody really came to the business
Well,
for.
the only exception is
Well, that's not completely.
ATG is experienced and they're rich. They came from England. They've done this for a long time and they have bought their way into the Broadway scene. It doesn't mean they're bad people, it just, at all. But they are experienced. The Schubert organization that owns 17 Broadway theaters, they have people who know what they're doing. But they also see their role, at least according to their last one of their last executives who's now passed. Jerry Schoenfeld is quoted in the New York Times as saying if he had his druthers, he would replace all his theaters with office buildings because they make more money, and that's what his job is for his investors, to make more
Mm,
money. And office buildings make more money than Broadway theaters. So, and this is the guy who owns the most theaters in the country, right? And this is what he's talking about. So we don't, there are many different brains thinking differently than those of us who just love theater, right? And
well, I mean, we were having that conversation in the office because we are in regional theater, but, it's just so interesting because how do you go from like, is it even possible all the people, all the organizations that own Broadway theaters, like, is there somebody in high school right
yeah,
now who could end up owning a Broadway house? Is that even a path
hmm,
of possibility? And it's just so interesting that, nowhere along this path to pursue theater in any kind of professional way is there a discussion about real estate.
except you're absolutely right. But the only people I know and have met who have ever owned a Broadway theater made their money somewhere else and then bought the theater.
Yeah.
I'm particularly thinking of this really delightful man named Marty Markinson, who owned what's currently the Helen Hayes Theater on Broadway. It was the only totally independent, individually owned. He had a partner. There were two of them. So I don't want to make there were one financial guy and Marty who loved theater but had a lot of money. And they bought this theater, I don't know how many decades ago, and they've been running it. And Torch Song Trilogy was there. I mean, tons of hits. It's a rather small theater, Broadway wise, but it's delightful. The last production of Purpose just played there. It's now owned by Second Stage Theater, a nonprofit, who bought it from Marty.
Mm,
He finally was getting to that age. He's no longer with us. So I guess he knew the end was near and he should just take his money and run. So he sold it. Anyway, he was a wonderful man. He was not in the business of deciding what great theater is and isn't, right? So again, it's not a theater person. There's a Broadway show, The Hellinger, which is now a church. It was sold to a religious group in the 70s, I think. I was alive, so it because I went to see a show in the Hellinger. It used to be a Broadway theater. Michael Bennett, the chorus line director and Dreamgirls, etc., he tried to buy it, but the religious group wouldn't sell it to him. So that would have been, again, he had enough money. He could have bought a theater. That would have, in my mind, been the first creative person owning a Broadway theater. But that never happened.
yeah. But what do you think? So, how come more people aren't interested in owning a theater?
Well, it's like being a house manager. The problem with taking care of the physical plant is you have to worry as much about toilets as you do about the play. And I
Yeah.
don't know too many of us who grew up loving theater who want to spend even 5 minutes worrying about toilets. But
Yeah. And it's not glamorous.
no. But and again,
It's not the
it is the
glamorous
job of
part.
the house manager, which I have done, right? But I much prefer the company manager, which is dealing with the actors and the stage managers and the crew. The house manager is dealing with the audience, the box office, the custodians, security, electricity, the mortgage, taxes. I mean, I'm sorry, it just gets worse by every piece of information I give you about what they're worried about.
Yeah.
And the
But it's
audience is a pain in the butt.
but it's always interesting that, particularly small theaters, we hire part-time people
Mm,
to be very, very much responsible for way more than we would ever compensate them
right.
for
Well, well,
as a house
again,
manager.
it's the old joke, but it actually happened. At one point, I was the general manager of the Big Apple Circus, and we had an elephant.
Mhm.
And there was one
Yeah.
time, just once, because the elephant was trained to do its business outside the tent before it went on. It was scheduled. The trainer knew how to do that. He woke up late one day. The elephant was raced into the ring. As it walked around the ring, it kept dumping whatever it wanted along the way. So we had to send the crew in with shovels so we didn't upset
Yeah.
the kids in the audience. So they were picking up poop behind the elephant as it went around the ring doing its tricks. And of course, the old joke is, after doing something like this, you really want this job? And the answer was, what? Leave show business? Right? That's the old line. This is what show business is. It's as much about picking up the poop after an elephant as it is about dancing the finale to a chorus line.
Rejected title, The Business of Theater, Shoveling
There you
Shit.
go. I'm endorsing that one. I think that is the right one. It has so many connotations and they all are appropriate.
Just SS or shoveling the
I don't know. We'll have to discuss that.
shoveling. Yeah. We'll put it in rejected
Okay.
for now. Chime in, listeners, if you
Yeah.
think our working title should be shoveling SH
Well, what if it's
asterisk T.
poop? What if we be nice? Or crap or poop or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it's just so interesting because like the struggles theater is having right now isn't about the quality of work.
That's true. That's a good point.
It's about running the business. And it's so interesting that that is the case because, there are grants out there that they want to fund the process of bringing something new, something exciting, something engaging to the stage. But it's like, but this infrastructure has to be in place in order for any of
Right.
that to be adequately distributed and used. And so it's just so interesting that how are we supposed to keep this building afloat if what we're in the building for is to make art, it's funny as I said that I'm thinking of the writer Alan Harrison,
Mm,
who we've had on the show. Like he would say what he would probably say in this, like, it's a little short-sighted to only think about the art as priority because you are still a nonprofit and you're still an
right.
organization. You're still a business for all of that. It's just interesting that we have all these layers of complexity to consider, while we're also reminding ourselves that we are running a
And
business.
that's why, and I always throw into the conversation, I think being a nonprofit in theater hurts theater. And
Mm,
because of the process, it becomes more about raising money. We have to raise money even if it's a commercial theater, of course. But the trick would be is your audience has to want to come see your show and they have to give you
mhm.
enough money to be able to afford to keep it running.
Yeah.
That isn't the truth with nonprofits who do have, as Alan said, as we've kind of agreed, their purpose is to do something for their community, right? And the theater part is just a portion of that. So that now becomes a mission that is skewed away from what you and I really want to do, which is put on theater,
Yeah.
right? The trick that we have, not the trick, the big issue I think that we have found ourselves knocking heads against a cement wall is it costs a significant amount to put on theater, and there is so much time and development, back to developing our line for today's session, right? It takes so much effort to develop a show. It does not happen in the first draft, second draft, 10th draft. It may take years. You have to have somebody with money who can keep it going, not because physically doing a theater piece is expensive. It's just people who do it deserve to make some money. But the
Mhm.
problem is, at that point, you don't have an audience that's willing to pay for something that isn't finished. And
Yeah.
that means that we have failed. I think we have royally failed in setting up the correct system for creating art. I don't even want to go into physical art, painters. Oh my God, novelists. This is how much time and energy. And of course, the publishing industry is much worse than theater, in my opinion. Having
Yeah.
two books out there, I will tell you, it's ugly. First of all, if there are 100,000 people writing a play at this very minute, there are 500,000 people writing a novel at this very minute. And there's only room for 20 on the bestseller list, 50. I don't know how many books they, allow on there. And that'll only last a few weeks unless you're number one, right? So
Yeah.
what are we supposed to, and then think about other countries. We're just talking about the United States. What do we do? I saw somebody from Ghana talking
Mhm.
about a book that she had written. And I'm just, in fact, also a friend of mine who used to run the Sundance Festival. Sundance had programs, I think, in 9 different countries around the world, helping people write and develop plays. None of them will make it to Broadway. They're not even thinking about that. None of them will make it to Philadelphia. So why are we writing them? Why are we
Yeah.
telling these people, use your creativity and create something that could be art, and make it even worse? We're charging them a fortune at colleges to take that as a major. That's
Yeah.
insult to injury.
It's like having to pay to, it's having to pay to color in a coloring
Thank
book.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting too. It's like, and you know that there are a lot of businesses where, over time they've just had employees who, don't perform as well as like the role that they were in. And so, perhaps they just kind of stay in that role and they create new
Hmm.
roles for other people to kind of avoid letting them go. And then they end up just sitting around in like an ancillary position that doesn't really mean anything. You end up having a lot of things like that. Of course, now we don't really have those, I just get paid to come here and sit at this
Hmm.
desk every day. Like the phone
Hmm.
rings and I transfer calls. Like nobody does that. It's like you have phone tree or everybody answers the
Right.
phone.
Right.
It's so interesting because there was a time where we were just trying to find work for people. And so we just created jobs, but now it's sort of like, I mean, the mindset that appears to be coming out of the administration is sort of like, if you can't figure it out yourself, that's your
Well, that's
problem.
always been a conservative concept of America, which you pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Your own bootstraps.
And I did it, so why can't you? And that's been the basis of the concept.
Then they conveniently omit whatever kind of help they
Right,
had.
of course.
Oh, I did it myself. Really? The person you knew that put in a good word for you when you were applying to that Ivy League school, like, they didn't help you at all? Like, who just walked into an Ivy League school without having
And the
connections?
the way that you had the money to go there, because you didn't have to
Mhm.
ask for the money,
Exactly.
which you then don't have to owe the rest of your life. Yeah, and that's
And, once certain people get accepted, like, the community knows, and then somebody has to rally to be like, "We can't, like, let this opportunity pass." They'll do everything they can to make sure this person ends up in that school because they've been
well,
accepted.
but I have to, my argument is, who cares if they went to the school? It's when you get out. And the truth
Mhm.
is,
Yeah.
some of us don't care what school you went to, because they aren't teaching you what I need you to know as a producer, as a general manager. I'm constantly teaching people the important stuff.
Yeah.
And most of the producers I know didn't go through the process like I did. I mean, again, I'm not trying to use myself as the example, but I've been a production assistant, an assistant stage manager, assistant company manager, a company manager, a general manager. At some point, I've seen people. I mean, I've seen people steal money. I've seen people make a fortune. I've seen the process by which you pay profits to the investor, which is why I don't understand why they even created Cabaret if they didn't figure out how they were going to pay them back. Right? I
Mm.
mean, really? And it may be that it's years away. That's the other thing. is that right now shows cost so much money. In order to pay anyone back, you have to wait years.
I also wonder if some of these producers are saying like, you, you know, is it like the housing lottery where it's like, I've got the opportunity to get in this Broadway house. Am I ready? No, but will this opportunity pass me by if I don't seize it?
That has
Yes.
happened not a lot. The few times it did, it created massive scandals within the industry. By law, you are not allowed to go into rehearsal for a Broadway or off Broadway show unless the full capitalization that you claimed you needed to produce the show, as evidenced by the offering required by New York State's Attorney General. This is a lot of paperwork. That's why you need lawyers. You have said the show costs $30 million. If you do not have $30 million in the bank before the first rehearsal, you are not allowed to go to rehearsal. I only know of one show that walked into rehearsal and sent everybody home because they lost the last investor and they didn't have it. I do know another producer who went into rehearsal and when the show closed on opening night was stuck with so many bills because he illegally opened the show and he didn't have the money to pay for what he had just produced. He should
Yeah.
have gone to jail. I'd love to name him, but unfortunately
Mhm.
now he doesn't do theater, he does film. So I wonder how that's working out. The poor film industry. At the same point, 95% of everyone I've ever worked with is honest, and it's hard to raise money. Hey, I'm trying this right now. I don't understand it. Unless you're rich yourself and you can back everything up with your own bank account, I don't know how they find this money.
I do. Yeah, I understand that struggle, and I'm always thinking about it too. I'm just like, there's only there's like a handful of people in every region, that that support companies. They've decided or they know someone there and they've made a connection, but they can't do that for every company. And so we end up looking at them like, I see it all the time when we go to opening nights. There's certain donors that everybody knows, and you're not going over there to make small talk with them. You're going over there so that they
Right.
see you and that you can tell them what you're working on so that they can have a bug in their ear. Maybe they go home and think about, hey, we met so and so who's part of that show at wherever, and perhaps it's a seed that was sown. It's like, it's so interesting that the theater community is about acting. It's primarily about acting, but it's also every element of it is
Hmm.
performative. Every element of our business is performative. So it's hard to tell if somebody smiling in your face is genuinely
Well,
smiling.
and it's particularly hard when you do like someone you're talking to at a party, but they
Mhm.
know the only thing that's running through your mind is, I hope someday they're going to invest some money in what I'm working on.
Yeah.
That's not a good relationship.
I went to a show last night. I went to a show last night, and after the show in the lobby, there were two people there who I've known, who I
Hmm.
know. I met them in similar scenarios, but one of them had given me their script to read over the summer, and I have not read the script yet. And so it wasn't really awkward, but it was like this, there's in this in our minds, it's like, hey, I gave you my script to read. You haven't said anything about it yet. But also the thought is like, you're somebody who could produce it. And so I'm trying to keep some sort of connection to you because I have work in
But see, now
play.
you just brought something up that took me a lot of years to understand. Playwrights, actors, directors, they think the producer can make things happen. All the producer does is raise money when something becomes passionately important to them. So, and most producers don't have a creative bone in their body. So, what would make, if you're, put yourself in their shoes, that's what we do in theater. You are somebody who has $100 million and you run a major corporation. Why do you want to help theater exile versus put money into Garth Drabinsky's Paradise Square, which of course opened and closed, and you're going to lose that, versus find a developmental company like the farm that I work with and give them $10,000 just take one show to the next level, which still will not be produced. Why do you do one versus the other or any of them? You can afford the tickets once the show's ready. You can wait to the very
Yeah.
last minute and say, this person developed the show right to the point that it's ready for prime time. It's Hamilton. Now I'm going to put my money in and I'll give them as much as they want because I get to act like I'm the big hotshot with a hit show. But
Mm.
the other stuff is small potatoes. It's also not guaranteed it's going to go anywhere. So the people that may go and say, here's a regional theater, I'm going to support them. Why? What's in their head? And that's where the development people, the people that are hired in the department, development, sometimes it has other titles, but it's fundraising.
Mhm.
Whether
Yeah.
it's give me a donation, nonprofit, most of these richer people don't even need the tax deduction. So they're just giving the money. And they're not getting it back. It's not an investment. They don't ever see it again. Here's money. My observation, like I know, right? I'm going to qualify this. My observation is they do it because they like the person they're giving it to and they trust
Mm.
them. That's all. It's sort of, it's
Yeah.
that personal. So yeah, you said you went to a party and you schmooze with somebody, so hopefully it's in the back of their head that you exist. Well, yeah, that helps because a year from now, if all of a sudden you're doing some project that they've heard about and they already met you, so they know you exist and that you're not a fly by night, they may want to be the one to be patted on the back, by giving a donation or to just get you
Yeah.
off their back. Okay, okay, here's $1,000. Go away.
No way. Yeah, I'll be back though for 1,000
Yeah,
more
they know
dollars.
that. And they'll avoid you, even though they have a lot more than that. Obviously, look at a Broadway show that costs 30 million. Somebody gave them a lot of money.
Well, I'll say for myself, I'm not donating to any organization in a way, in any kind of capacity that's like, wow, they couldn't do it without my
Right.
contribution. My contribution is just it's the equivalent of throwing change into a well. And but the reason I do it is because I have a connection. I had an interview with one company at a pivotal point in their existence where their artistic leader resonated with me so passionately that I was like, I need to be on the side of you winning. And so I want to show my support. And so that's what I did. But the other bits of support are I work for the organization and I care about the organization. So I'm going to give to the organization. And yeah, there's a few organizations I work with in various capacities and I do contribute to them because I'm involved, which it seems kind of funny because they also pay me and I'm just sort of giving some of it back.
That's happened a lot for me also.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, just the same. I've donated to Theater Exile. No offense to your artistic director. I'm not giving it because I like her, even though I do. I'm giving it because you work there and because
Yeah.
whatever program I'm supporting sounds good. I
Mhm.
don't think I'm throwing
Yeah.
it away. I think it's doing good. The same thing. I
Yeah.
have a wonderful organization, Covenant House, which handles homeless
Mhm.
kids, which
Yeah.
helps homeless kids. They have a program, and the wonderful actress singer Karen Mason does what's called a sleep out. Once a year, some famous and almost famous people literally sleep out in sleeping bags on the street in support to raise money. It's sort of like people who do the marathons and they're raising money for charity. She sleeps on the street overnight to raise money for Covenant House. Well, I would give money to Covenant House anyway, but since Karen is somebody I adore, I'm going to give it through her. Through her, the fact that she's decided to sleep outside and make this effort, I'm going to make sure she knows I'm supporting her, even though I'm really supporting Covenant House. It becomes friendship. And I guess
Yeah.
if you do have $100 million in the bank, your friendship looks larger.
Well, that always makes me worry because, you're giving to an organization because of the connection you currently have. But what happens if that connection breaks? Like, what happens if that person that you're supporting that organization for leaves the company? It's like, we have to make sure that, whoever's supporting the company now will support the company because of the
And
company.
most places it's bye-bye, you know?
Yeah, which makes it hard for it makes it hard for someone to ascend to an artistic director position because it's the thought that you would have to bring your own donor base with you. Or even if you're a development person, because of the situation we're in now, like the conversation's gonna be like, who do you know? Who can you bring? It's like you don't wanna know what kind of art I would bring to the space, how I would use the capabilities of your venue to bring great art to your neighborhood. You just wanna know how deep are the pockets that
Right.
make
Well,
up your
that's why
Rolodex.
uh, I I was very honored about 10 years ago to be asked to be on the board of directors of an arts education organization.
Mhm.
But I had to explain to them, I don't have money to contribute at the level of your other board of directors. That's the reason they're on the board. You expect them to donate at least X amount of thousands each year as a minimum. And I don't have that. You have to be aware that this isn't just fun. And that's the problem. We're still, I'm very lucky. I'm developing plays and musicals right now. I'm having relative fun because I don't have a building to worry about the toilet paper. It's short term every time we do something, which means I don't have to have a large payroll. So it's
Mhm.
small bits of money at a time. And at the same point, there's no income. So
Yeah.
it's very tricky.
Mhm. This is Oh, go ahead. I was I was gonna say this is as we wrap up, we get to a realization that not sure that we solved
No.
anything. We just brought to light the issue that has always been looming. But I think it's just, on the one hand, if we are celebrating art, like for instance, my one singular sensation
Go
of the
for it.
episode is the 2025 Philly Fringe Festival. It just opened on September 4th, so if you're listening to this in some kind of real time, there's still time to participate in this festival. It's now through September 28th. There's over 300 productions in the festival, and they come from every neighborhood in Philadelphia, and people have come from outside of the region to participate in the festival. It's just crazy to think about how every single one of them had to get some funding from
Hmm.
somewhere to bring whatever they're bringing to the festival and how they had to financially contribute to just be part of the festival. And so, like, in general, our kind of thought process is, get tickets to anything. See as much of it as you can. Be entertained. Get your fringe on. It's like we have a month-long festival going on. It's not just for these diehard theater people. It's for
Hmm.
everyone. There's so many disciplinaries that you can look at and find something interesting. I really hope that people do. The links in our show notes. But when I think about all of that, I'm just like, when this festival ends, our entire theater community in the region is now, center stage, arguably, pushing their individual shows, which are tied to infrastructure because they've got buildings, or they've got a venue temporarily, but it's probably for a longer time than they had in the festival. And it's just like, who do we expect to support all of this? There's just a handful of like well-to-do donors and supporters, but then everyone else is like, I want these organizations to exist, but I'll give them sweat equity. I don't have any money, because
That's
of
why we all work
this for
free or
everybody.
close to free. That's our donation,
Yeah,
right?
the
Yeah.
access. I know. And yeah, the riches that we have. Like I say to my partner all the time, I was like, we're rich in the terms of
God,
access.
no offense, make me puke. I'm
What?
rich in terms of, yeah, I got it. I'm tired of
That's
that.
what I'm
I'm
saying.
tired of that. It is time. It is time.
Yes.
We've been talking about a new normal. I will give my one singular sensation. I actually have two, but one of them is
Okay.
Art New York here in New York, the Alliance of Resident Theaters of New York, which supports off Broadway theater companies, both educationally and with inexpensive theaters and inexpensive rehearsal studios. They're holding a symposium at the end of October about alternatives to the finances of how we stay alive in this environment. And I have no idea who's going to come up with the brilliant ideas, but they're the only ones I know who finally want to at least have a conversation about what other ways
Mhm.
can we finance ourselves. That's one. My
Yeah.
second one, my two singular sensations. I want to celebrate a theater company called Progonis, PRTT. Their home base is in the Bronx with a gorgeous theater up there. It's just beautiful, and they have a good audience up in the Bronx. Theater is not just on Broadway. They have merged with the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, which is on West 47th Street in Midtown Manhattan, as across the street from Broadway theaters. It's a great location.
Mhm.
They have renovated it. It's stunning, and they run both places. And they have a program called Step Up, which helps aspiring Latin playwrights, not just Latin playwrights, the theme of the shows, they prefer to have Latin themes. So you don't have to be a Latin playwright. And they find a way to provide their spaces and some money to help new, sometimes young writers see their stuff on a stage. And their staff is phenomenal. They're a family,
Mhm.
and they are all. I know this is sometimes sounds like a mediocre word, but they're competent. They know how to do theater. They know how to do box office. They know how to do stage management. They know how to market. They know how to put up lights. They have brand new lighting grids. They understand the world of theater, and they put on some very good shows themselves. So that's my shout out to Progones PRTT. PRTT is for Puerto Rican Traveling Theater. And their
Yeah.
website, Pregones, Pregones, PRTT.org.
Yeah. It's in the
Okay,
show
thank you.
notes,
And on that
so
note,
you can have Yeah. That's The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm
I'm Mitch
Darnell
Weiss.
Bradford, and we'll see you at the
Bye.
theater.